Welcome back, everyone. Please welcome on stage Patrik Dahlen, the CEO of Immunovia. A warm welcome, Patrik. Please.
Thank you very much. I'm real pleased to be here today. And what I will share with you is an overview of Immunovia. I will talk in depth about pancreatic cancer and the opportunities we have there. I will share with you some forward-looking numbers with regards to our business numbers. And I will talk very briefly about our pipeline. We have a tremendous opportunity ahead of us as Immunovia. We have a first mover advantage with our IMMray PanCan-d, which we just launched in August for early surveillance of pancreatic cancer and for early detection of pancreatic cancer. We're addressing a very large market opportunity. We estimate the market size to be $4 billion yearly going forward for Immunovia. And we have a very, very strong team. We have a lab in place that's CLIA accredited, and we are working towards reimbursement before the end of 2022 for our IMMray PanCan-d in the US. In terms of Immunovia's background, we're founded in 2014. We're a spin-out from Lund University. We were spun out by Carl Borrebaeck, who is still our chairman. We are still based in Lund, in Medicon Village. We listed here on NASDAQ in Stockholm under the ticker symbol IMNO. And again, we have a lab in Marlborough, Massachusetts, that's CLIA accredited, where we're running our IMMray PanCan-d test currently. Next, I want to say a few words about pancreatic cancer and describe to you the opportunities we have there. Pancreatic cancer is not a very common cancer. There's a little bit more than 60,000 new cases of pancreatic cancer in the US every year. There's about 50,000 deaths because of pancreatic cancer every year. So it's an uncommon cancer, luckily, but unfortunately a very deadly cancer. And the reason for this, you can see on the slide, is basically that most of the diagnoses made for pancreatic cancer are made too late. More than 80% of all cancer diagnostics are made in stage 3 or 4 when the tumor is not resectable. Only 11% of the diagnoses are made when the tumor is localized, that is in stage 1 or 2, and when the tumor is resectable. And this fact that so few diagnoses are made in a timely manner leads to the unfortunate situation that this is a very deadly cancer. You can see here the clear benefit from early diagnosis, that is in the localized stage or in stage 1 and 2. 42% of the patients who are diagnosed in stage 1 or 2 survive 5 years or longer. And you can equally well see from this slide that only 3% of people who are diagnosed in stage 4 unfortunately live for 5 years. So it's very, very important to diagnose pancreatic cancer early. There are 3 risk groups that Immunovia is attending to tackle. The first risk group that we are going for is familial hereditary, which is a group of people with a high risk for pancreatic cancer because of family history and or because of their genetic traits. This is the risk group that we have launched the test for now for yearly surveillance of this high risk group with the help of IMMray PanCan-d. We're hoping later in the fall to be able to launch IMMray PanCan-d also for differential diagnosis in the symptomatic group where people have already developed symptoms associated with pancreatic cancer. And here we're hoping that IMMray PanCan-d can speed up the diagnosis. More longer term, we will be working towards launching IMMray PanCan-d for new onset diabetes. There are growing evidence that new onset diabetes for people over 50 years of age, that there's a very, very strong linkage of pancreatic cancer, developing pancreatic cancer for this particular risk group. So as we develop more clinical data, we're hoping to be able to launch our test also for this particular risk group. I talked earlier about a $4 billion US dollar addressable market size. It's made up in the following manner. About $500 million of the addressable market comes from the familiar hereditary group. That is based on the estimation that there's about 350,000 people in the US who would benefit from high-risk surveillance programs based on family history and their genetic traits. And the recommendation would be to test this group twice a year. About 400 million market size opportunity exists in the symptomatic group where we're proposing that IMMray PanCan-d would be available as a differential diagnosis opportunity for these patients. And then more longer term, again, the big opportunity for us is obviously in the new onset diabetes group, where there's about 900,000 persons per year, unfortunately, who develop diabetes type 2 and are over 50 years of age and therefore have a elevated risk of also developing pancreatic cancer. In this particular risk group, we are proposing twice a year testing, as the pancreatic cancer is a very rapidly onsetting cancer form. We've done extensive clinical studies with IMMray PanCan-d. We have a world-class sensitivity, 89% sensitivity for early detection of pancreatic cancer in stage 1 and 2. And again, as I said before, it's really about detecting the cancer in stage 1 and 2. So if you take nothing else away from this presentation, please remember that our sensitivity when it comes to early detection of pancreatic cancer in stage 1 and 2 is 89%. The specificity is obviously very high, 99% specificity. And again, it's a blood-based test. It's an ordinary serum sample, so it's a non-invasive method compared to many of the other proposed methods out there. Our test now for surveillance works like this. You draw the sample by the patient, you send it into our lab, we produce a test result. The test result goes to the physician that then has a dialogue with the high-risk person. If the result is negative, then the person should come back in next year or later in the year for continued surveillance. If the test is positive, you should move on for expedited diagnosis, which would be done by endoscopic ultrasound. That would then, when confirmed, lead to surgery and treatment. Our test is, as I said, based on serum sample. We have our antibodies localized on a microarray slide via biochemical reactions. We bind fluorescence markers to the proteins that are bound to the antibodies. We scan it in a fluorescence scanner, and a sophisticated software algorithm calculates the result, and that generates a patient result that is sent, and a patient report that is sent to the treating doctor. In terms of our test and how it compares to existing imaging methods, you can see in the slide that the current surveillance methods are MRI, CT, and endoscopic ultrasound. The MRI and CT are obviously non-invasive methods, and endoscopic ultrasound is invasive. You can see that MRI and CT does not have nearly as good sensitivities as IMMray PanCan-d. You can see that also, as I proposed before, endoscopic ultrasound has a very high sensitivity and is the the measure to do the diagnosis. So we compare extremely favorably with our test results for surveillance. We're also comparing ourselves to other methods that are out there. IMMray PanCan-d has a very favorable profile for surveillance. Thrive and Grail are working on tests. In fact, the Grail test gallery is launched in the US. Both the tests from Thrive and Grail are proposed as multi-cancer screening methods. And again, you can see that one of the difficulties they're having is with regards to the sensitivity for pancreatic cancer detection in the early stages of pancreatic cancer. In fact, it's very difficult for them sometimes to even get samples enough for the early stages of pancreatic cancer. And again, we think that the tests like Gallery actually supplements what we're doing, where we have a very unique positioning for precisely surveillance testing of high-risk groups, and not like Gallery, which is more for general population screening. So we made tremendous amounts of progress in this year. We are now in the phase where we have launched the test for self-pay. Obviously, the next steps to focus on now is CAP accreditation, so that we can get the last of the 5 states on board where we cannot market the test yet. And then obviously to perform a PanFAM study, publish that, and then post that, start payer engagement. And we, as I said before, are well on track to have reimbursement in place by the end of 2022. We've done extensive discussions with payers already about our test. We have placed our price based on our best estimates of where the current methods are at. Our list price is just below $1,000 per test. And as you can see, the reimbursement rates for MRI and CT are above 3,000 for CT and above 5,000 for MRI. And many of the payers, and you see some quotes listed here, many of the payers fully recognize that our test has a lot to offer over and beyond what current methods that are reimbursed actually have to offer. We have a sales force in place. Today we're mostly selling in through the surveillance centers and the National Pancreatic Foundation centers. Obviously, we're also marketing with the help of patient advocacy groups and all kinds of social media channels, etc. When we have reimbursement in place, obviously our plans is to dramatically build out our sales force, and we estimate that the sales force of 80 to 90 individuals would be sufficient to cover the main targets that we are going for in the future. A few numbers. At the end of Q2, we had 380+ million Swedish crowns in the bank. That gives us at least a year and a half of run rate, maybe even 2 years of run rate going forward. So we're well financed. We have explicitly said in the past, and we continue to maintain the view that we should reach at least a 30% market penetration with IMMray PanCan-d for the applicable high-risk groups that we talked about. And this means that we should be able to generate a business of $170 million at least for the high-risk group of familiar hereditary. And we should be able to get up to $1.3 billion of revenue from all 3 risk groups taken together once we are approved for the other risk groups as well. Longer term, we obviously have very large ambitions with regards to our turnover. We think that post-reimbursement sales will really rapidly pick up. We have a product innovation cycle where obviously we have the most important thing is actually the pancreatic cancer network. We think we can replicate this network with other cancers and other nearby cancers. And then the second most important thing from this slide is our ability to, via these networks of key opinion leaders, actually collect the right type of cohorts to conduct intelligent clinical studies. So therefore, for us, obviously, now our main focus is on pancreatic cancer. It's a huge opportunity in itself, but as we move forward, we're obviously clear that we will have additional value creation opportunities in neighboring cancer areas. So, in conclusion, we have a very exciting opportunity with pancreatic cancer, a very large market to address. We have clearly a first mover opportunity with IMMray PanCan-d now being as the first test, first blood-based test being launched in the US. So we are extremely well positioned to continue from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patrik. Well positioned indeed. It must feel great to have gotten this far.
It does indeed. It's been a very eventful year.
Great. So for future reimbursements, what are the most important activities that you would have to do and your strongest arguments that you will achieve that?
So we will need to show clinical utility and clinical performance, and that we will do with the help of the PanFAM study. So that is the most important step. And the reason why we're very optimistic about our ability to get to reimbursement is obviously based on the fact that for high risk surveillance, there is a very tight inclusion criteria for those persons that should be included in surveillance. It's not a general population screening method. It's really intended for a specific group of individuals. And in high surveillance today, the current test methods are much less specific and much less sensitive and cost 3 to 5 times more than the test that we provide.
It seems rational that you should get a reimbursement. The Pancreatic Cancer Action Network has endorsed your test. What does that mean to you?
It means the world to us. I mean, obviously they have a very large member group. They have a very large following. They distributed the information to all their members about IMMray PanCan-d. The excitement around from all key opinion leaders has been overwhelming, really. So it means the world to us, actually, to come out that way. And not only PanCan, but also National Pancreatic Foundation was also out distributing all the information to all their members. So it's been really, really exciting for us.
Congratulations on that. That you have gotten approval on IMMray PanCan-d in the US. Does this have any bearing relevance for future Immunovia tests?
It does in the sense that obviously we still have a lot of work to do with pancreatic cancer. I think there is, as I said, we obviously want to make the test available for differential diagnosis for the symptomatics. We want to move into the new onset diabetics. So there is a lot to do still with pancreatic cancer. But it's clear that what we've done with IMMray PanCan-d now and being able to reach the market, we've proven that our approach works, our proteomics approach works, and that we have a platform where we can replicate what we've done going forward. So very excited about it, and clearly this is a major milestone for Immunovia.
And what about Europe then? Is that a relevant market for you? What's your strategy for Europe?
We will update the market with regards to Europe very soon. Obviously, the European market is very different from the US market. When you look at peers to us who are in early detection of cancer, all of them focus on US first. I mean, and there are many reasons for it: the road to reimbursement, the pricing, the readiness. It's a completely different level, obviously, in the US compared to Europe.
Yes, and to round off the Q&A session, if you get to make a wish list, what does Immunovia look like in 3 to 5 years' time?
I think, obviously we want to be the absolute leader within pancreatic cancer and early detection of pancreatic cancer. That is clear. This is one of the most horrible forms of cancer that you can get, and to be the company that's a first mover, launches a test for early detection, being the first one doing that based on a simple blood sample, really, I would put it like this: we want to be for pancreatic cancer what Exact Sciences wanted to be for colorectal cancer.
And on that note, thank you very much once again, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.